homage to Buddha Shakyamuni, homage to Manjushri, homage to all the lineage masters. The supreme, profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate beings, please generate bodhicitta before teaching. In the previous lecture, we have already discussed the preparatory and the main practices for taking hold of bodhicitta. These two important points have already been explained. Starting from today, we will begin to learn the concluding practices for taking hold of bodhicitta. The concluding practices are divided into two parts. One is the transitional verses, and the other is the actual concluding practice. First, the transitional verses serve to connect what comes before and after. In other words, these verses link the preceding and following sections. This is also stated in the root verses. When the wise have thus sincerely taken hold of bodhicitta, they should generate joy so that it may increase. Regarding the concluding practice, this should be clear to everyone. We have already generated bodhicitta. Before generating bodhicitta, we accumulated merit and purified obscurations. We then offered our own bodies and let go of all the things we are attached to, including our possessions. We also made aspirations and dedications so that in the future, all causes and conditions may arise to benefit sentient beings. We aspire to become whatever is beneficial for beings, whether it be things or resources. After making such aspirations in the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and before our teachers, we have received this most precious and rare bodhicitta. Regarding receiving bodhicitta, everyone present here today, as long as you have not broken the continuity, should have already received bodhicitta in your own mind stream. As for the method of receiving bodhicitta, on the one hand, we recited the ritual prayers, and at the same time, we visualized the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. In their presence, we received the Bodhisattva vow. After receiving the Bodhisattva vow, as long as no serious obstacles or breaches have occurred in our practice, the essence of the bodhicitta vow should remain within us, so we should all give rise to a sense of joy. Next, let's talk about why we should feel joyful and how we should cultivate and maintain this positive state of mind. This is the main point we will discuss. Here it is said that those who possess the eye of wisdom, these wise individuals, through the preparatory and main practices described above, have already gained this extremely rare bodhicitta in their own mind streams. Once this bodhicitta has been generated and purified, how should we maintain it? Then it's a question about the conclusion, which should also be brought to completion. If the preparatory and main practices are complete, but the concluding practice is not, just like with anything else, the process is not truly complete. It may start well and go well in the middle, but if we do not stabilize it at the end, if we do not help the roots of virtue to grow, then the whole endeavor is not truly perfect. Therefore, in order for bodhicitta to never decline in our own mind streams and to continually increase day by day so that its qualities keep growing stronger to achieve this goal, we should rejoice in and praise all the roots of virtue created by ourselves and others. Whenever we do any virtuous deed, we must always rejoice and offer heartfelt praise. If we do not do this, then for some people their motivation may not be sustained and it's possible for their resolve to fade. This is why the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas always praise the qualities of bodhicitta. This is the reason. Why do we choose this approach? In fact, the act of receiving bodhicitta, it is truly the action of a wise person, an act of wisdom. If one is not wise, one might simply follow the crowd, doing whatever others do. But this time, that is not the case. For taking the bodhisattva vow, we have done so after careful consideration, using our own wisdom and examining things thoroughly. Then, with the guidance of a spiritual teacher, we have received the vow. This is the excellent path that the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas have relied upon to attain realization, a most excellent path and support. So it is not because of being forced by others or pressured by anyone else that we have taken the bodhisattva vow. Each wise person has come to understand the supreme and extraordinary qualities of bodhicitta after repeated reflection. Having understood these qualities and benefits, we have willingly accepted bodhicitta in the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. As we all know that if we do not have bodhicitta in our mind stream, then all the virtuous deeds we perform will not bring great merit, nor will they truly benefit sentient beings. In the world, we know that there are many kinds of virtue, such as the merit of the happiness of gods and humans that we discussed earlier, or the four immeasurables, or the merit of Brahma, who possesses the four immeasurables. And there are also the virtuous actions of Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, or the virtues created with a self-centered motivation, but in fact, these virtues are not especially supreme. In the entire world, the greatest virtue, the one that brings the most benefit to sentient beings, is none other than bodhicitta. So, from every perspective, having understood the supreme qualities of bodhicitta, we have now received this excellent bodhicitta. Indeed, those who have received bodhicitta are truly remarkable. In the past, Lord Atisha often taught in Tibetan regions the three essential points: bodhicitta, taking refuge, and karma and its effects. He often taught these 3 points. Once there was a local villager who often heard Lord Atisha teaching about bodhicitta, but he did not really know what bodhicitta was. Later he had a chance to meet Geshe Potowa. He very honestly and humbly asked Geshe Potowa, Lord Atisha talks about bodhicitta every day, but what exactly is bodhicitta? Is it a person's name or what is it? Then Geshe Potowa answered him with great care, saying, bodhicitta is the mind that gives up self-centeredness, and for the sake of all sentient beings as vast as space, giving rise to the intention to attain perfect and complete enlightenment. It is a heartfelt aspiration that we should all generate. That was the answer he gave. After hearing this, the old man was deeply moved and said, "Oh, now I understand. Those who receive such bodhicitta are truly remarkable." He was full of praise for bodhicitta, saying how extraordinary it is. This story was later included in some Kadampa teachings. So, from these teachings and stories, we should understand that all those wise ones who receive bodhicitta truly possess a certain degree of wisdom. Those without wisdom could not possibly accept such bodhicitta, and those without merit could not encounter such a supreme Mahayana teaching. So I think for all of us here, we have already received bodhicitta. After receiving bodhicitta, in order for its roots of virtue to be complete, we should protect this bodhicitta and we should nurture this bodhicitta. Moreover, we should make it stable and strong so that it will always continue in our own mind streams. For each of us who studies Mahayana Dharma, this is a very important responsibility. To achieve this goal, we should practice rejoicing in the virtues of ourselves and others. We should cultivate joy in ourselves and make others feel joy as well. In this way, through rejoicing, we praise the supreme qualities of bodhicitta. Next, we talk about giving rise to joy from both our own and others' perspectives. The actual concluding practice is discussed from 2 aspects: giving rise to joy in ourselves and arousing joy in others. First, why should we give rise to joy in ourselves? We feel joy because we have accomplished our own benefit, and also because we have accomplished the benefit of sentient beings. So we explain it from these 2 perspectives. First, feeling joy because of accomplishing our own benefit. We will explain this in 3 points. The first is to reflect on the preciousness of human life, contemplating its great significance with the bodhicitta. The root verse says, "Now my life has become fruitful. I have truly obtained a precious human life. Today I am born into the family of the Buddhas and have become an heir of the Tathagatas. Literally speaking, in this very life, I have already gained such precious bodhicitta. So this life of mine is truly fortunate and meaningful. Moreover, I have obtained this precious human life with freedoms and advantages. Why am I so fortunate? Because I have obtained a precious human life, and I have been born into the family of the Tathagatas. With the bodhicitta, I have become the spiritual heir, the child of the Buddha." So we should feel that It is truly a great privilege to encounter the Mahayana Dharma. If we had not encountered the Mahayana Dharma, perhaps like many people today, we would still be wandering in samsara with a self-centered attitude. We can see that some people do not have any faith. They are just busy with worldly affairs all day long. In fact, they do not even know where their life is heading. If we had not studied the Dharma, it's very likely we would be like this as well. So I think we who receive this teaching are truly very fortunate. Of course, this good fortune does not arise without causes and conditions. It is the result of our own virtue, perhaps from millions of years ago, such as making offerings to the Tathagatas and practicing the authentic Dharma, plus the inconceivable blessings and power of the Buddha. With all these causes and conditions coming together in this very life, we have met such a spiritual teacher and encountered the Mahayana Dharma. We have also been born in a central land where the Dharma flourishes. This is an incredibly rare opportunity for each of us. So first of all, we should know why it is that in this very life we have such good fortune. Since beginningless time, we have been wandering in samsara. The number of times we have wandered is beyond calculation, truly limitless. But throughout all this time, we have never given rise to such a supreme bodhicitta in our own mind stream. Yet in this very life, we have now given rise to genuine and unmistaken bodhicitta. Such bodhicitta is extremely rare among all human lives. As humans, we all have this human body. Yet sometimes, some individuals obtain a human body but do not use it well. Some use their human life to create negative karma. Some live meaningless lives, neither virtuous nor non-virtuous. But in this life, we obtain a human life endowed with the 10 advantages and free from the 8 states without freedom. Such a precious human life with 18 freedoms and advantages. At the same time, we have had the opportunity to give rise to bodhicitta. After generating bodhicitta, we can say that we have now been born into the family of the Tathagatas. Of course, the family of the Tathagatas does not mean that we have all become members of the Shakya clan. From a worldly perspective, when our minds give rise to faith and understanding in the Mahayana Dharma, as explained in the ornament of Mahayana Sutras, this is the seed of liberation beginning to sprout. So now we have the opportunity for it to mature. So, when we give rise to faith in the Mahayana Dharma and generate aspirational and engaged bodhicitta for beings, this marks the very beginning of our conventional bodhicitta. Of course, absolute bodhicitta begins from the first bhumi. As for the family of the Tathagatas, though we have not yet truly been born into that family, right now, in our own mind streams, we have already given rise to relative bodhicitta. When you give rise to bodhicitta, as mentioned earlier, your name and your very identity have completely changed. You have become a spiritual heir of the Tathagata. It is just like being the crown prince of a Chakravartin king. Although the prince does not yet have all the abilities to rule the kingdom, he is already the heir to the throne, destined to become king one day. No matter what, he will definitely inherit the throne in the future. In the same way, for all of us, we should first give rise to a sense of joy within ourselves. Having obtained such a precious human life is truly hard to come by. We should recognize how precious this opportunity is. Some Dharma friends have also said recently, I feel I am truly fortunate now. Otherwise, on the long road of life with so many negative influences and so many wrong paths, I did not join those groups, but instead entered the Mahayana path. I feel this is the greatest honor of my life. Many people feel this way, and we should feel the same. Although right now we still have desire, anger, and worldly afflictions in our own mind streams, in fact, we have already been summoned by the blessings of the Tathagata. It's like a fish in the ocean that has already been hooked. No matter what, it will definitely be pulled to dry land, to the other shore. In the same way, we have now encountered this rare and supreme Mahayana Dharma, and bodhicitta has already arisen in our mind stream. So if we are diligent and truly make an effort, it is possible to attain realization in this very life. This is true in both the Sutrayana and Vajrayana traditions. For example, in the past, Venerable Ananda, by relying on special instructions, attained realization in a single day. His story is recorded in the Vinaya Sutra and in the biographies of great tantric masters. The great master Lawapa relying on the pith instructions of his guru, attained the full realization of Mahamudra through one night of practice. So in a single night of practice, in just one night, he attained complete realization. In Tibetan Buddhism, there was a yogi named Sharawa who is often mentioned in mind training teachings. He relied on Lord Atisha's teachings on bodhicitta, giving up self-centeredness and practicing compassion and bodhicitta. After encountering these teachings, from then on, he regarded all his possessions, his self and what belonged to him, namely I and mine, as meaningless and abandoned them all. He practiced single-pointedly for 5 years. After 5 years, he attained complete realization. He is recognized as a great accomplished master in Buddhist history. So if we are diligent, it is possible to attain realization in a short time, even in this very life. We can definitely accomplish this, even if we are a bit slower, as long as we do not abandon the aspirational bodhicitta in our mind stream. Then we will definitely achieve realization in a short time. In any case, realization is certain. It is only a matter of time. Back when we were in school, we took the entrance exam for Garze Teachers College. At that time, the normal school was a bit different from what it is now. Back then, everyone who graduated from there became a teacher. So everyone who got into that school had this feeling that no matter what, I'll definitely have a salary in the future. As long as I didn't break any major school rules, even if my grades were poor, I would still become a teacher. We all had this sense of reassurance, a special sense of security, or you could say a sense of safety. So for all of us, such a joyful mind is not just empty words. When we talk about the Dharma, if we only praise it with vague and flowery words, it would be meaningless, but our praise is actually well-founded. And countless great accomplished masters have attained realization through this very path. As we have discussed before, throughout history, many great masters and accomplished beings have relied on this excellent path and attained unsurpassed perfect enlightenment. So I think we all should feel a deep sense of joy in our hearts. This sense of joy is very important. If without joy, it means we do not realize its value, so we feel indifferent. Especially now, as we study this teaching, we should feel very honored and happy. But some individuals seem not to recognize the true value of what they have and take it all for granted. I listen to the Dharma every day as routine. I generate bodhicitta. This isn't anything special or rare. Some people may think this way. We need to change our attitude. We should all reflect that now we have already been born into the family of the Tathagatas. Back in India, there were actually many stories related to this. For example, as a son from a young age, he would always ask, "What is my father's family lineage?" Once he learned about his father's family profession, from then on, he would also pursue that work himself. So he would know what he should do and pursue. For example, whether he was from a Brahmin family or the Shakya clan, whatever the family, he should inherit the family's work. In the same way, we too should feel joyful. It is as if we were once wandering in a vast wilderness like people with no one to rely on. But now we have the guidance of a Mahayana teacher and the protection of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We should think to ourselves, from now on, I have become a member of the followers of the Tathagata. We should think this way. So each of us should feel a sense of joy in our hearts. If we feel nothing, neither joy nor pain in our hearts, then, as Longchenpa says in Finding Rest in the Nature of Mind, our hearts seem to become like a stone or an iron ball. Some people feel nothing at all when it comes to liberation, but they are very strongly attached to worldly pleasures and trivial worldly matters, including things that are irrational. Their emotional reactions are very strong, happy one moment and sad the next. They are so attached, but when it comes to genuine renunciation or feeling weary of worldly suffering, they never seem to tire of it, nor do they ever rejoice in the virtuous deeds of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or their inconceivable activities. This is a mindset that some of us might have, but it's something we can and should change. That is the first point. The second point is that since we have already generated bodhicitta, we should stabilize it by not being careless in our conduct. We should make it stable and not let it disappear. We should not let our commitment to bodhicitta fade away. It should not disappear for any reason. We must not let that happen. The root verse says, "From now on, I will act in ways that befit my family and never bring disgrace to this immaculate and noble lineage." Here it says that I must do my best to live up to the activities of the family of the Tathagatas. I must never stain this pure and stainless lineage. This noble and precious lineage of the Tathagatas must not be defiled. So this verse points out two things. First, in everything we do from now on, we must follow the doctrines and disciplines set by the Buddha. We should try our best to uphold all the precepts of Buddhism. That is the first point. Second, since we have already generated bodhicitta and joined the Mahayana Sangha, from now on, we are completely different from others. Our identity is different now. We must live up to the activities of the Buddha, and we must never defile the pure and immaculate lineage of the Tathagatas with unwholesome actions. So, for every practitioner, I think we should each have a sense of responsibility for ourselves. Before we joined the Mahayana Sangha, our body and mind may not have had much restraint. We could do whatever we wanted, however we liked. But now, it is completely different from before. I once met an official who was a county party secretary. He said, "Now that I am a county party secretary, my behavior is completely different from others. Before I was sometimes a bit careless, but now I have to restrain myself, so many people are watching me." Even worldly people have this kind of mindfulness and awareness. In the same way, as monastics and as Mahayana practitioners, we should also be mindful. Before we took refuge and entered the Mahayana path, our body and mind often followed worldly ways and acted carelessly. That was the case. But now it is completely different from before. In front of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, Vajra masters, we have made a commitment. From now on, we must follow the example of Amitabha, Shakyamuni, Manjushri, Avalokiteshvara, and so on. How they benefit sentient beings, how they let go of self-cherishing and self-centered actions. We too must make such aspirations and strive to do the same. So, having made such aspirations, those who are wise will not make empty promises. We must have a sense of responsibility for ourselves. So, I think all of us should always remember that we have already made this aspiration in the presence of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. After making this aspiration, our conduct is completely different. For example, even in worldly life in a hotel, there are some staff members. In a star-rated hotel, these staff members have already promised their boss or manager that from now on, they will be a member of the company. No matter if others treat them badly or whatever happens for the sake of their work, they will still take it seriously. They never break any of the rules set by the company. If they make such a promise, then in their daily work they will always act properly. They will often remind themselves of the commitments they have made. In the same way, as Mahayana practitioners, we have truly made this aspiration in the presence of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. We have taken the bodhicitta vow willingly. I think there are two main points to remember about this commitment. First, we should do our best to give up all self-centeredness and do our best to help sentient beings. This is what we should do to uphold the Tathagata's activities. If we look at the great masters of Han Buddhism throughout history, such as Master Kumarajiva, Master Xuanzang, Master Jie, and Master Jianzhen, among others, when we read the biographies of these eminent masters, we see that none of them focused on themselves. They all gave up self-cherishing and worked for the benefit of others. Through this great activity, they attained the highest realization. So for all of us, we should follow their steps, though we may have limited abilities. And our motivation may not be very strong because self-centeredness has been ingrained in us since beginningless time. It may be difficult to change all at once, but still we must shoulder the Buddha's work and take up the responsibilities of the Buddha family. This is something that every Mahayana practitioner must not give up or abandon. So, as mentioned here, first we must live up to the activities of the Tathagata. Second, we must never defile the pure activities and pure lineage of the Tathagata with our own unwholesome actions. Buddhism is a pure and stainless religion. This is something that wise people around the world recognize. However, among Buddhist practitioners, some people's conduct is indeed not in accordance with the Dharma. And it's not just monastics who see this. Even lay people notice it. This is really unreasonable. In Tibetan Buddhism, throughout its long history, no one can find any fault in the teachings of Tibetan Buddhism. Especially in some Tibetan monasteries, whether it is debate, study, practice, or retreat, there are many features, perhaps more than in many other traditions, including Han Buddhism and Theravada Buddhism. In some places and some monasteries, it may be hard to match. This is not just boasting. If you have the chance, many of you should go and visit some of the meditation centers in Tibetan Buddhism, some practice centers and Buddhist academies. There, year after year, they are always debating, studying, and practicing. They have truly found the pure wisdom of the Tathagata. But nowadays, in this degenerate age, there are a very small number of people, whether in the Han regions or abroad. There are some actions that are not in accordance with the Dharma, and it is as Buddhists that they often defame or bring damage to Buddhism. Some time ago, I heard about a Tulku from Tibetan Buddhism who went to the Guangdong area to collect alms. During his time there, he met a layperson who perhaps lacked wisdom. I often feel that whether in Tibetan Buddhism or Han Buddhism, when monastics who don't act according to the Dharma and lay people who lack wisdom interact, it often brings harm to Buddhism. A wise layperson will first observe how this practitioner or monastic actually behaves. They will be discerning in their offerings and interactions. As for this Tulku, while he was there, he may have first promoted some things about himself, such as the situation of his monastery, his reincarnation status, and so on. After that, the layperson developed faith and ended up offering him a car. After receiving the car, the Tulku returned to the Tibetan region. But once he arrived, the layperson realized that what he had heard in the Han region was not entirely true. There were many inconsistencies and discrepancies. The layperson became unhappy. When they reached Chengdu, the layperson no longer wanted to offer the car. He wanted to take it back. This led to a conflict between the two. In the end, the Tulku said, since you have already made the offering, you cannot take it back now. If you do, it will be a fault in terms of Buddhism. And from a worldly perspective, it is also unreasonable. And he said a lot more. Then the layperson replied, I did not make this offering for no reason. At the time, I thought you were a truly remarkable master. Now I regret it and do not want to offer it anymore. Because of this, the dispute dragged on for a long time. In the end, it was resolved through government mediation. I heard that the car was eventually returned to the layperson. The practitioner, feeling disappointed, returned to the Tibetan region, to the land of snows, with a sense of loss. I think this case cannot represent Tibetan Buddhism as a whole, but within Tibetan Buddhism, there are indeed some individuals whose conduct is careless. And it's not just in Tibetan Buddhism. Some Buddhists sometimes do not behave properly. And this can have negative consequences for Buddhism as a whole. This is something we often hear about and witness ourselves. So whether we are monastics or lay practitioners, we all need to be careful about our conduct. Especially some lay people nowadays often say, I am a Buddhist who has taken refuge, I am such and such, but in their actions you cannot see that they are truly Buddhist. Whether it is in terms of kindness or acting in accordance with the Dharma, they do not have it. Some people in society who have never taken refuge or entered the Mahayana sometimes behave even better than these so-called Buddhists. So I hope that since just a few days ago we have generated bodhicitta in front of the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, no matter what we did in the past, from now on, we should never use the name of Buddhism to deceive or harm sentient beings. We must not harm sentient beings, because all our lineage masters and all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas would even give up their own lives to save a single being. They would give up their own lives. This is how it should be. But now, as Buddhists, not only do we fail to benefit sentient beings, but our actions also deceive, harm, and even beat sentient beings. If we act like this, our conduct is completely at odds with the great masters of the past. So, can we attain realization this way? Absolutely not. Not only will we not attain realization, but our actions will harm Buddhism as a whole and hinder the growth of virtue in all beings. So, everyone please, if you really cannot restrain your own conduct, as Mipham Rinpoche says in his teachings, if you truly cannot keep the conduct of a monastic, the Buddha allows you to return your vows and become a layperson. There is nothing wrong with that. But if you wear the monastic robes and constantly act inappropriately, that is not acceptable. I once met a layperson who had strong habitual tendencies and wrong views. He said that in one place, he saw a rather overweight monk who was said to be a well-known master. Next to him were two Han Chinese nuns, one on each side, supporting him as he walked. He walked with their help as if they were his crutches. This is really not in accordance with the Dharma, whether from the perspective of the precepts or from the perspective of how others see it, it is not proper. If all of our minds were completely free of afflictions and very pure, even in the Buddha's time, I think this would still be difficult. But as Buddhists, we should always behave and act properly in public. We should be dignified. We should never deliberately bring disgrace to Buddhism. To do so is a serious fault for ourselves as well. Whether you are a monastic or a layperson, you should always present a dignified and respectful image, even in front of non-Buddhists. Maintaining a dignified presence, I think this is very important. Sometimes I may point out others' faults, but this is not because of any personal conflict with anyone. It is just that, as Buddhists, if we are not careful, it is truly not good for our own body and mind. In fact, if we truly practice the Dharma, especially as monastics, it is the most honorable and noble thing. Not long ago, some of us classmates gathered together. There were only 2 who later became monastics. At that time, many classmates were concerned about us. They thought, you have become monastics, you have no salary, no status. How pitiful. Many people even shed tears for us. But now, it has been 20 years since we graduated. 20 years later, when we all gathered together and looked back, every classmate in their hearts and in their lives had gone through countless hardships and twists. Some faced difficulties in their careers, some in relationships, some in their families. When each person thought about it, almost everyone shed tears. But the 2 of us who became monastics, our lives are simple and abundant, and over these 20 years our state of mind has also been quite good. We have not experienced so much suffering or unbearable sadness. We can hardly recall any. So later, even some of our teachers were full of praise for the Buddha's pure path. Therefore, I think for all the monastics here, you should also reflect on this. If you hadn't become monastics, and were still lay people, it would be hard to even find time for a single Dharma class. This is something we can see clearly. Above you, there are elderly people you must support. In the middle at work, there are some hard to deal with people. Below you, there are children you must raise. And all around, there are relatives and friends. Every day you have to deal with all of this and handle so many things. So sometimes I think for those of us who are monastics, we are truly fortunate. You should all recognize that you have been born into the family of the Tathagata. Especially the pure conduct of individual liberation. This is so dignified, and you must never abandon it. You should recognize the merit of this. Otherwise, in the future, if you return to lay life or become truly unfortunate, when you look back, it may be too late. Therefore, you should cherish the good fortune you have today. This is something we should all remember. Now, let's move on to the 3rd point, using an analogy to illustrate how rare it is to give rise to bodhicitta. That's the point here. Just as a blind man might find a jewel in a heap of rubbish, so by some fortunate chance, bodhicitta has arisen in me. Here it says, it is like a blind person who is extremely poor, someone extremely poor, finding a priceless wish-fulfilling jewel in a pile of ruins or garbage. This is extremely rare and fortunate, and something almost impossible. But if you do obtain it, everyone would agree it is something truly extraordinary. In the same way, right now with this body that is like a ruin created by karma and afflictions, and in a state like a blind person with no wisdom to discern what to accept or reject at such a time, to obtain bodhicitta, which is like a wish-fulfilling jewel, is truly extremely rare. These 2 aspects, the analogy and its meaning, can be combined and understood together. First, the one who obtains the jewel. Since beginningless time, we have never opened the eyes of wisdom to discern what to accept or reject. So, from the perspective of the one who finds it, it is extremely rare. Second, the place where we obtain the object. Normally, in the ocean or in a king's treasury, a wish-fulfilling jewel might appear, but it is impossible to find a priceless, wish-fulfilling jewel in a trash heap or filthy ruins. It is simply impossible to obtain such a treasure there. Generally, this is something impossible. So from the perspective of the place, it is also extremely rare. Third, the value of the object. The thing we obtain here is this wish-fulfilling jewel. Usually when we receive some reward or material possession, it is possible, but it only happens occasionally. But to obtain a wish-fulfilling jewel without a great deal of merit, it is simply impossible. So in terms of the value of what is obtained, it is truly incomparable. We can analyze this analogy from these three aspects. To have the chance to obtain such supreme bodhicitta in this very life is indeed extremely precious. Many of us, before receiving bodhicitta, our human life probably had no real meaning. Some people ate much seafood, frogs, or even poisonous snakes, or spent their days just, I may be exaggerating a bit, but I think there's really not much difference between a snake and a poisonous snake. I think for some of us in our past lives, what we ate was like that. And we often kept talking about trivial things, and our actions were just about going here and there to seek excitement. In fact, many of these activities are not beneficial to our well-being. Especially when you look at the way some people are living, this human life is not being used to fulfill its true value and meaning. But if they hear this, they might not be happy. They might think, hey, my life is so meaningful. Look at my nice house, look at my family, and so on. But all these are only temporary. From a worldly point of view, it still has a certain value. Sometimes our sense of value is a bit different. From their perspective, maybe there is something there, but whether it truly has real value still needs to be considered. But in this very life, we have truly attained bodhicitta. This bodhicitta is a treasure that even ordinary people have never dreamed of. It is truly no different from a wish-fulfilling jewel. So I often think, for example, if someone offered you today the position of president or head of state, is that really something to be praised? Not really. If you truly gain altruistic bodhicitta in your mind stream, its value far surpasses any worldly status. The world doesn't see it this way. For example, when you win a sports competition or receive some world-class award or win a championship or a Nobel Prize, at such times, in the midst of everyone's joy, the winner is also very pleased with themselves. Some people are so happy they almost faint. This does happen, but compared with the value of bodhicitta, no matter how many dollars the award is worth, none of it can compare with the value of bodhicitta. For example, the awards you win after your life is over, they're all gone. Even if you win a Nobel Prize and are admired by the whole world, you might enjoy it for a decade or so, but after that, the award or praise cannot go with you. If you become president or head of state, after your term ends, you're just an ordinary person again. And when you face death, you are just like any ordinary person. But if you have generated bodhicitta and no obstacles arise, then until you attain Buddhahood, life after life, you have already become someone who possesses the seed of liberation and have already set foot on the path to enlightenment. With this bodhicitta, your destiny in samsara has changed. So I think all of you should feel cherished and happy. Sometimes some of you may have thoughts like this: I can't really practice, I can't memorize anything, I am not capable of taking the exams. Every day I'm just muddling through like this. There's not much meaning at all. Should I just go jump in a river or something? Some people might think this way, but actually you shouldn't feel this kind of inferiority. In fact, if you have truly given rise to the resolve to benefit others in your mind stream, if you have bodhicitta in your mind stream, then even if you do nothing at all in this life, it is still fine. Even if you do nothing, even if you sleep in every day, as long as you have bodhicitta, it's okay. Even if you just eat well every day and don't participate in anything, as long as you have bodhicitta, I think that's still fine. I'm not joking. I'm speaking from the heart. These are truly heartfelt words. Bodhicitta is truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. To obtain such bodhicitta over countless eons is extremely rare. It is extremely, truly rare. Just as it is described in the Avatamsaka Sutra, there was a poor person who, when he finally obtained a wish-fulfilling jewel, was overjoyed. From then on, his entire destiny is changed. In the same way, for everyone here, some of you may have encountered the Dharma in your 40s, some in your 30s, some from childhood. But no matter when you encountered the Mahayana Dharma, from that moment on, your disposition has changed. Before, you lived only for yourself, your family, and your friends, but now you live for the benefit of all beings. If you have changed your direction in this way, then truly to obtain a human body in this life is of immense significance. Whether others recognize it or not, this is the reality. This value and benefit, I think each of us must acknowledge it. If you don't acknowledge it, you must have a very good reason. But I think no one could possibly have such a reason. For over 2,500 years, Mahayana Buddhism in this world has never had any flaw that could be exploited. No non-Buddhist or scholar has ever been able to refute the noble spirit of Mahayana Buddhism. Therefore, everyone should give rise to a sense of joy. Here, too, an analogy is used to illustrate the joy that arises in our own mind stream. Now, we come to the part, feel joy in accomplishing the benefit of others. Let us consider this bodhicitta. It not only accomplishes our own benefit, but also the benefit of all beings. We should all give rise to joy for this as well. Today, I think we should all be very happy, because not long ago when we talked about confession, sometimes when we reflected on our heavy negative karma, it felt as if there was no hope at all. Sometimes we felt really heartbroken. But today, I see that everyone is very joyful, and that's how it should be. Now, in the root text, it says, "This is the supreme elixir that overcomes the Lord of Death. This is the inexhaustible treasure that dispels the poverty of beings. This is the supreme medicine that cures the maladies of the world." When you recite this section, it sounds especially beautiful. And when you recite it from memory, it seems you do it very easily. These lines are quite similar to each other. Some people who were not reciting very well before suddenly lift their heads and very confidently recite this bodhicitta. This verse explains that in the cycle of birth and death, each of us has been wandering in samsara for countless eons. If we want to completely destroy the Lord of Death, the one who rules over sentient beings, we must rely on bodhicitta to do so. As for what we called amrita or nectar, in some other Mahayana teachings, it is said to be the nectar of the gods. When the gods fought with the asuras, if a god was injured by relying on the nectar, they would not die, but recover. Since then, the excellent Dharma of Buddha Shakyamuni has also been called nectar. It is known as nectar. So when the Buddha finally attained enlightenment, he said, "Profound, peaceful, free from elaboration, luminous, unconditioned. Such is the nectar-like Dharma I have found." At the very beginning, when the Buddha attained such realization, he said these words. So when we say nectar, it means ending birth and death for sentient beings. That is, defeating the Lord of Death. From this perspective, we call the Dharma the nectar. From another perspective, worldly nectar is the supreme medicine. Even when someone is on the verge of death, by relying on nectar, they can recover. It has that kind of power. So, in the cycle of birth and death, what can truly destroy samsara is this bodhicitta, relying on the power of bodhicitta. For example, as a teacher, if I have bodhicitta from now on, I will never again have to enter the endless cycle of samsara. Or if you are a listener or a practitioner and you have bodhicitta in your mind stream, from now on, you will not have to wander in the 6 realms of samsara. Therefore, we call it nectar, destroying the cyclical existence or the Lord of Death. Next, bodhicitta is described as the inexhaustible treasure that removes poverty. In this world, some people suffer greatly because they lack material wealth and live in poverty. They do not have merit and are very poor. Some people, although they have enough material wealth, still feel empty inside. They always feel a sense of loss and never experience true happiness. This is also true for many people in the world today. Even though they have everything materially, Their inner goals are never fulfilled. As a result, their greed only grows stronger day by day. In the end, they never reach their goals and are left in pain, never feeling satisfied. They are always caught in longing and desire. Such people are in fact spiritually very poor. But bodhicitta is what truly fulfills the wishes of all sentient beings. If you have bodhicitta in your mind, you'll be happy because there is no self-cherishing, no selfishness. Then why would you crave wealth or anything else? You wouldn't. You would have a sense of contentment and would never feel sad. This is one way to explain it. Or for those who lack the temporary happiness of gods and humans, bodhicitta grants them the treasure of such happiness. For those who lack the joy of the three liberations, it brings them ultimate perfect happiness. For those who do not have this happiness, it fulfills their wishes. By relying on bodhicitta, they are satisfied. So from both perspectives, bodhicitta is the only thing in the world that can truly satisfy all beings. It is like the treasure of a king. So we can say that bodhicitta is incredibly precious. When bodhicitta arises in our mind stream, we ourselves become truly fortunate beings. Some people say, I feel so sad right now because I don't have any merit. I want to make more offerings to the three jewels, give to sentient beings. There are so many pitiful beings in the world and I want to help them. It's good that you want to help those pitiful beings who are in fact the field of compassion. This is also what is taught in the sutras. When we talk about accumulating merit, one is the field of merit, like the Buddha called the field of merit. Another is the field of kindness, like our parents who have great kindness toward us. And the third is the field of compassion, which refers to pitiful beings and the sick. By relying on these three fields and practicing with strong intention over time, the merit and good fortune you accumulate will be very great. This is also taught in Letter to a Friend. Of course, if you want to help pitiful beings and fulfill their needs, that is wonderful. But if you do not have the financial means, I believe that if you have bodhicitta, you will fulfill the wishes of all beings. So some people may feel, I don't have the ability or strength to help others right now. I'll help them when I get rich in the future, but right now I don't have the strength. But with authentic bodhicitta, one will have both the intention and the strength. Isn't that so? There are also many kinds of illnesses in this world. Bodhicitta can dispel all the physical and mental illnesses of beings, even those that are considered incurable or terminal. That is, some truly frightening diseases. Some are physical, some are mental. But all these illnesses can be cured by bodhicitta, as you know, all 84,000 types of illness. In fact, all illnesses have their root in greed, anger, and ignorance. It is because of desire, anger, ignorance, and the imbalances of wind, bile, and phlegm that these illnesses arise. With bodhicitta, you cut off the root of desire, anger, and ignorance. Then all the illnesses will disappear. So bodhicitta is the only supreme medicine. That's why Patru Rinpoche also said in some of his teachings that bodhicitta is the essence of all 84,000 Dharma teachings. With it, you can accomplish enlightenment. Without it, you cannot attain or achieve any result. This is why Patru Rinpoche always praised bodhicitta so highly. Therefore, I think we should all give rise to a sense of joy. Especially as practitioners, if you have bodhicitta, then whether it's illness, demonic influences, or any difficulties in your practice, all of them can be transformed into the path. Jetsun Milarepa also said in the past that all illnesses, obstacles, and unfavorable conditions are all settled within the channels, winds, and essence, and by practicing bodhicitta, they become an adornment of practice, an adornment of virtue. Therefore, during his process of practice, no unfavorable condition could ever harm him. So if you truly have bodhicitta in your mind stream, even if evil spirits or negative forces harm you every day, you can offer your body to them, visualize helping them, and have nothing to fear. Let them harm you if they wish. When you encounter suffering, if you transform it into the path with bodhicitta, the suffering will disappear. So a practitioner with bodhicitta is truly happy. But those without bodhicitta, no matter how great things may look on the surface, in reality, the merit is not very great, and their actions may not necessarily serve as a truly virtuous way to accumulate merit and good fortune. So I hope that everyone here should carefully examine your own mind stream. If you have bodhicitta, you should feel great joy. I believe that this time you have already generated bodhicitta, and after generating bodhicitta, you should protect it well. It's just like when someone finds a wish-fulfilling jewel. If a war breaks out, people will do everything they can to protect and hide it. Everyone knows this must not be damaged or lost. If it is lost, it would be too costly. Everyone values it greatly. In the same way, now through your own good fortune and merit, you have obtained bodhicitta. So everyone must carefully and cautiously protect it. If you protect it and never give up bodhicitta, even at the time of death, if your intention to benefit beings is never abandoned, then even though life is short, this time you have truly laid a very good foundation for all your future lives. You have already established an excellent basis. So I keep urging and praying for everyone again and again that the wish-fulfilling jewel of bodhicitta, which we have received through the blessings of our teachers, should never be abandoned and must always be protected. One day you will realize, oh, I made this bodhicitta aspiration in the past, and so in this very life I have gained such merit. You will see this for yourself. That's all for today's teaching.
Bandara Padma Sada Bandara Padma Sada